Hello, welcome to another Touchygooners podcast. My name is Lewis. I'm joined by Nigerian Dan. How you doing, man?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. In fact, it's about time someone asked how I am. When I ask people how are you, no one ever bloody asks how I am.
I won't do that next time. Don't worry.
Yeah, thanks. Olu, how are you?
I'm not bad, man. 2 weeks in a row, made an appearance.
I know, man. You're really rinsing out this new bike edition that you got, right?
Building things up, mate. Yeah.
I respect it. Well, you spend 100 quid on a mic and you're getting uses out of it.
Oh, mate. Got it, man. This is expensive, boy.
Yeah, I can imagine. And we're delighted to say that we're joined by Sami Mokbel again. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. How you doing?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Sami. Yeah, I'm doing really well, as well as we can do. Obviously, we're hoping that you can give us some enthusiasm, because last time you were on the pod, you left us with the whole Willian stuff, and we were a bit dejected. We went back into the group chat, and we was like, oh man, Sami really just he let us down with the whole Willian stuff. We're hoping you can give us a bit more enthusiasm on tonight's pod. Maybe it's a bit of a tall order, given the events that's going on at the moment.
Yeah.
But I guess where we could start with is just in terms of how rocky the season has been for Arsenal. You know, we started off all right. We had a decent window by all but incomings anyway. We had a decent window. I think a lot of us bemoaned the fact that we couldn't get rid of a lot of the deadwood, and we're still seeing that now, that, you know, there's still so many of these players that we just can't get rid of. But incomings wise, we signed some good players, except the one that you told us about, Willian, who's been a bit of disappointment. And then obviously things started to fall apart. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the whole season so far, and what's been your view on how Arsenal have dealt with the situation surrounding Arteta.
First and foremost, I think that the most important thing to stress is there was a lot of talk around Arteta's future, and certainly amongst the sections of the fan base, whether he's the right man for the job. I don't think that was ever a conversation that was had within the sort of the corridors of power at the Emirates. I think they, regardless of what of the start you had, and the results that were coming in, it was always maintained to me that the club were accepted that it was a long-term project with Mikel, and that they were always going to be on board. Listen, obviously there would always be a point in time if the season imploded, which, you know, in sort of some weeks it looked like it was going to implode. You know, there was talk of a relegation fight at one stage, wasn't there? But I don't think there was, sort of, in terms of Arteta ever being under pressure to keep his job, I don't think we ever quite got to that stage. And obviously the run that you guys have been on recently, kind of, you know, I'm not saying that it has righted the wrongs of the start of the season, but it's definitely gone to placate some of the sort of the bad will that was starting to grow against the manager. And listen, you guys have still got a long way to go to turn it round. You know, you're always, as is always the case with Arsenal, you're only 2 defeats on a spin away from a crisis, and that's just the way it is, I suppose, at Arsenal. But
yeah,
the current signs are relatively promising, but, you know, I think there's still major problems and sort of quirks that need to be sorted out within the squad.
Yeah. Do you think there ever was a point where, I know you said that obviously it wasn't really in their focus to pull the trigger on Arteta, but do you think there was ever like a number in mind, like if we continue to lose X amount of games, then this will be the moment we would have had to pull the trigger?
It's a good question. I think a conversation would probably have to have been had if you guys slipped into the bottom three, and you were in the bottom three for a sustained period of time. I think that would have been the moment, or that would have been the sequence of events that would have led to, at the very least, a conversation being had. And let's make no bones about it. I don't think, what were you at one stage? You were 2 points, 3 points away from the relegation zone. So it wasn't like it was beyond the realms of possibility. But the feeling that I got was that it was Project Arteta all the way, and we knew there was going to be bumps along the way, and you kind of just got to run with it and roll with it. And as I said, I think the results that you've had recently have placated what was and steadied what was a rocky ship. But as we said, you're always Arsenal are always a couple of defeats away from lurching into another crisis.
Yeah,
do
definitely.
You think? I was just going to say, in terms of because of obviously COVID situation, barely any fans being at the stadium. Do you think? Because obviously one of the downfalls for Wenger and Emery was the fans at the stadium. Do you think if the fans were there doing that run, do you not think he would have felt the pressure a lot more, and the club would have felt a lot more pressure than obviously now with the lack of fans? They can kind of do whatever they want.
100%. I think that is bang on the money. I think if the fans were in the stadium, and the response to the run and the response to the manager was as vociferous as it has been, as you say, for Emery and Wenger during those latter days of his tenure. I think when you're a board member, or you sit on the board of a club, you can't ignore that kind of negativity. And in many ways, at various clubs and at various junctures, that has done for managers, for Premier League managers. Once the fans turn, the board invariably buckle under the pressure of and make the decision to part ways. But so I think you're right. That's where Mikel has perhaps landed on his feet a little bit. That we all want. We all want. And Mikel Arteta has been on record as saying he wants fans back in the stadium as soon as it possibly can, as soon as it's safe to do so. But maybe in this scenario, the fact that there have been no supporters in the stadium has sort of played to his advantage.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, obviously, leading on from that. Obviously, there are huge financial implications for having no fans in the stadium. And news came out that this week Arsenal have taken out, is it £120 million loan? Some kind of Wonga short-term loan. I don't quite know what it is.
That Wonga loan there,
yeah, that's got to be paid back in X amount of time. Do you have any thoughts or any ideas as to why that loan was taken out, and and how that maybe hampers us this window?
I don't think it is. I don't think it will hamper or advantage I guess you guys are talking about transfer window and your transfers. I don't think that will have an impact. I think the money was taken out more just to run it, just to ease the strain of the running costs of the club. Essentially, obviously the pandemic has hit football and has hit Arsenal as every club, significantly. And I think the money that they've taken out, the loan that they thought to take out, will just help with easing that burden a little bit. But from my understanding is that money won't have an impact on transfer incomings. I think the business they're trying to do is the business they're trying to do, and that money won't be reflected in what they eventually end up doing, which probably won't be loads in January. I think
I was hoping for a while, Brand.
Yeah, listen, I think it's we do know that they're definitely after an attacking midfielder, but it's easier said than done. I think the emergence of Emile Smith-Rowe in the last few weeks has perhaps, I'm not saying it definitely has, but I'm saying that it perhaps has eased the necessity to bring an attacking midfielder in. But equally, and I'm sure you guys would probably concur, I don't whether you can rely on someone like Emil Smith-Rowe, as talented as he is, and he's obviously going to be a fantastic footballer, whether you can rely on a youngster to sort of dig you out of the hole that you're in terms of creating chances, because be frank, that's been a massive problem. Whether you can rely on him week in, week out to do that, I'm not sure you can, and I think Mikel Arteta would still be in the market for reinforcements in that creative area if they can do one.
Yeah, I think my understanding of the loan was sort of like, to give you an example, you're getting a bit tight before payday, so you don't want to put anything more on your current account, so you just put it on your credit card, and then you're just you'll pay back the credit card next month after you've been paid. Because I think May is when a lot of the money that we get annually comes in from like Adidas and Emirates and all of that sponsorship deals. So the way I see it is just them taking advantage of some, I guess, cheap cash that the government made available. Whether you agree with that morally or whatnot is a different argument. But I think Daniel Levy's done it, and it proved to be quite sensible thing for Spurs to do. So I think that, and I think on the Smith Rowe point, I think Arteta said, right, he said after, I think, the Brighton win that, this form isn't going to change our plans, that kind of thing. And I would hope that it wouldn't, because from other reports, you're hearing that Smith Rowe was going to go out on loan and whatnot. So, I guess the plan wasn't even for him to even like to be this good. But if he does go out on loan, I would assume that they would still think that someone would be needed. And this is a guy who's had loads of injury problems in the past, which is why he's not played that much football in the past 2 years. So to then like sort of go into the second half of the season being like, this guy is the answer to all our problems, I think would be very, very short-term thinking. So yeah,
it's not just in terms
I
of
agree with that.
It's not just short-term though. It's like it's just unfair on Smith Rowe. It's just a huge burden on his shoulder. Don't get me wrong; he's very talented to me, because I've always like push, or not Lewis. Lewis can stay there because But I've always thought Smith Rowe. Yeah, I saw him once and I just thought, yeah, this kid's got something. But
you think that about every youngster? Oh, you think that about every?
Man, I don't. You don't need to. You lot are unfair here. I said some are decent, and
Glenn Kamara, remember Glenn Kamara?
Glenn Kamara is having a good career. If I'm being, he's in Rangers, doing well. He's having a good career, and I'm always right in terms of that. But Smith Rowe, you just can't put that much pressure on him. He's not. It's just too early, too soon. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not like Foden is like another level. We can't use Smith Rowe as a comparison to Foden. So the way we need to use him, we need to take care of him in terms of how we like give his impact into the team. To me.
How we manage them, yeah. And it's not like Arsenal have historically overplayed youngsters in history, have they? No. Yeah, exactly. So, Sami, just going on to transfers, then, have you heard any inklings about who Arsenal's like number one targets would be? Would it be? Are they looking to do permanent stuff? Is it loan deals? What kind of constraints are we working with?
I think that ideally want to do a loan just to get them out of the hole for the rest of the season if one is doable. I think that makes sense. I think players are more readily available, or the players you want or you target are more readily available at the end of the season, and they're also probably available at a better price. So to me, going into the loan market for a stopgap makes bundles of sense to me. I think one at the start of the window, I don't know if it's called, I haven't heard recently, but I saw the Isco links, and I understand they were correct, or they are correct, that they would consider that one. Again, I can't see that wouldn't be a permanent deal, surely, just because of the finances attached to that deal. And to me, it doesn't really. I don't know how old Isco is now, but I'm not sure he would.
28, I think, maybe.
Right, so maybe 28, 29. Are you getting a player who's hungry? Are you getting a player who's gone over the hill a little bit? I'm not sure. I'm not sure he would fit the ethos of player that Arteta would want long term. But I certainly think he would fit the bill short term if he can come in and do a job for 6 months, and then if he does well in that 6 month period, maybe then doing a loan for a year, maybe that could work. But I think that the Arsenal would rather keep their powder dry in terms of permanent deals till the summer, where as I say, clubs are more prepared to let go of their better players, and also you're probably more likely to get a better price.
Yeah,
because if you're looking to get a starting attacking midfielder in January, clubs will invariably know that the buying club must be pretty desperate. So that the price goes up by 10 million quid just on that alone. So
especially in our position. So
everyone knows.
That brother starving.
Everyone knows, don't they, that Arsenal are after that kind of player. So it goes up.
Do you think they regret with how they treated Ozil, not really using him?
I'm not sure if regret's the right word. Listen, Ozil's a fantastic footballer, he is technically, and he's one of the best of a generation. He's literally won everything, hasn't he? But I don't think we should also forget that towards the latter days of Wenger's reign, and obviously he's kind of, since Emery's come in, he's kind of gone off a cliff, right? And he hasn't really performed. Even in those latter days of Wenger's reign, I'm not even sure we were seeing the best of Mesut Ozil. I can't remember. Maybe I'm a bit unappreciative of how good he actually is or how good he actually was. But I watched at that period of time. I watched a lot of Arsenal, and I don't know. Yeah, he always just flattered to deceive for me. Listen, fantastic player. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't feel he was affecting.
Don't worry, Sami. This is a safe place for Ozil slander.
No, I'm not having any Ozil slander. I've got to rep it for the group.
Don't worry, it's a safe space. I'll have your back.
Listen, I'm not doubting his ability, because he is a fantastic player, and in the right team, he'd be an asset. But I don't think he'd be an asset in the way that Arteta wants to play, in terms of the high energy, the work rate, the pressing. Can you see Mesut Ozil, pressing onto whatever the centre midfielder? I can't see it, and I don't think he would fit into Mikel Arteta's sort of strategy and the way he wants to play.
Yeah. Do you think then, now that that sort of deal to see him finally leave the club, do you think that's going to happen this month? Because I think all the reports are saying, Fenerbahce, that move's looking very likely, and that do you reckon that that saga is finally going to be coming to an end now?
Yeah, for once, I can sit here and say that I think there is an openness from both parties to get that deal done to Fenerbahce this month. It will invariably, as these things always are, end up a discussion about money. He's still owed, he's still got 6 months on a contract, which is worth 350 grand a week. So
that's probably 8 or 9 million or whatever.
Why is he going to?
Isn't it? Yeah.
Why is he just going to walk away from that? So
of course,
this, whether you think that's right or wrong, it is what it is. He would, in my opinion, he would be silly to walk away from that. But other people would disagree with me. But I think finally there is an openness, certainly from Mesut Ozil's point of view, is to negotiate, come to some sort of deal with regards to the rest of his wages, whether that he forgoes a little bit of it, or the buying club, i.e. Fenerbahce, pay part of, Arsenal paid the brunt of his the rest of his wages until the summer, and then Fenerbahce pay the rest, and then obviously then Fenerbahce take on his full whack when next season, from next season when his actual Arsenal contract runs. So there's various ways that they can sort of come to a deal and negotiate. But yeah, you know, whether it happens or not is dependent on how much Mesut Ozil is willing to forego, how much money he's willing to forego. But yeah, that, you know, I think there was a willingness there for on all parties for that deal to happen.
What's your stance on obviously what's happened since lockdown finished and we restarted the season, Project Restart? Obviously, Ozil left out after practically, I think, maybe starting every game under Arteta when he first came.
Yeah.
And obviously we have there seems to be this real big divide about the reasons why Ozil has been left out. Is it political reasons? Is it footballing reasons? Is it the wage cut? Do you have any thoughts on, you know, are we to believe everything that comes from the club in terms of the reasoning that they are saying that Ozil was left out?
I would suggest it was. I think it's, and some of the indications that I've had, that it is a footballing reason. I don't think the commercial side of things, as far as I'm aware, has come into that decision. I think Arteta's got a way of playing, as we've suggested. I think they've looked at his work rate, looked at what he does off the ball rather than on the ball, and ask themselves a question: does he fit into what we want to do here? I think the answer to that has been a categorical no, as we know. Listen, there's always been rumours and suggestions of Mesut Ozil's demeanour on the training ground, even during those final days of Arsenal, Arsene Wenger. There was always suggestions of kind of, you know, his motivation and his attitude in training, and you know, I wonder if maybe that side of his professionalism, shall we say, has maybe played a part again in Arteta thinking. I'm not saying that I know that for definite, but there is obviously reasons behind Arteta's decision to completely eradicate him from the squad, because it's a weird decision to make, right? Because you have proven experience, you have proven talent there. So not to use him and not to have him in your squad at all suggests that it is a footballing reason, but it suggests there's probably more to it. And listen, whether it is an attitude problem, only Mikel Arteta could answer that question, because he's the one who made the decision. But it certainly wouldn't surprise me.
And so, sorry, just before we move on, you mentioned there that Arteta did make the decision. Are you confident that was the case, that it wasn't coming down from, you know, powers that be? You know, there's all sorts of these theories, and it's just, it's like, you know what Mesut Ozil like is, you tweet one thing about Mesut Ozil and then you got all the wackos in your mentions. Oziltologists, I call them.
No. Listen, I don't concur with the fact that it's been a decision that's forced upon him. I don't think that's the case. I think if Mikel Arteta wanted to pick Mesut Ozil in his squad, he would pick up Mesut Ozil in his squad, but he's obviously got very serious reasons as to why he hasn't. I suppose, you know, we may never find out what publicly what those reasons are, and no one will ever confirm. But I don't think it's a decision that's been forced upon Mikel Arteta. I don't think he would stand for that.
Okay.
I don't really want to make an Ozil party right now, to be fair, but with him, do you not think that the media have kind of let Arteta get away with things a bit? Because obviously we saw how how we were like suffering creativity, and do you not think they've kind of let him get away with it, just doing whatever? Because it did seem like Arsenal tried to just get by this season.
In terms of the decision to leave him out of the squad.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Could that have been highlighted? Listen, I have seen, to be honest, I have seen pieces and stories to that effect. You've got you've got a problem in creating chances, and you've got one of the best creators that have ever sort of graced the world of football sitting at the training ground not being used. Have we let him off the hook? Maybe he hasn't had the scrutiny. Maybe he hasn't had the scrutiny that other managers would have got. But I think part of the reason maybe that he hasn't had that scrutiny is because I think the message coming from inside the club has been so strong that Arteta is going to be the manager no matter what. And I think that maybe has influenced, in inverted commas, the narrative a little bit with regards to Mikel Arteta. But I think if another manager at another sort of top 6 club went on the kind of run Arsenal went on, perhaps their managers would be under far more listen, we're seeing with Chelsea now. Look at Chelsea. They've been on a poor run, not anywhere near as a poor run that Arsenal were on. And we're already talking about, and obviously Chelsea is obviously a different dynamic, but and we're already, Frank's already under pressure there, despite the fact he led them to an FA Cup final last year, despite the fact he led them to the top 4 last year, despite the fact they're through to the Champions League knockout stages this year. So maybe he has been let off the hook, but as I say, I think part of that is because the narrative, because the message from inside the club has been so strong.
What is how have you found Arteta so far? Because I think there's maybe a bit of a perception around him that he's a bit of a media darling, that he obviously comes across very well in his press conferences. He's very eloquent, and the way he talks, I think that's one of the things that I most enjoyed about Arteta. After we had Emery, where Emery couldn't really communicate his message, it was all a bit mumble jumbled, and then you got Arteta who came in. He laid out what exactly he wanted to do, and we really enjoyed the confidence and the passion that he spoke about things. So has that kind of, do you think that's wearing off or not? Do you think that's wearing off from Arteta in terms of the fan base, and also with you guys in the media as well? Are you guys still as charmed maybe as you were at the start?
First off, we should definitely point out that was the communication of the manager was definitely one of the prime. I remember at the time when Unai Emery lost his job. I remember the communication publicly was one of the main criteria they were looking for in their next manager. Someone who could essentially, you're never going to get an Arsene Wenger. Being in an Arsene Wenger press conference was always an experience. He could hold court. He would hold the room. He had that character. He had that demeanor. But they certainly wanted someone who, listen, Unai Emery tried to communicate, and he tried to bring a little bit of character to his press conferences. But I think he just wasn't comfortable with the language. And there's nothing wrong with that. My Spanish is, my Spanish is, I couldn't hold a conversation in Spanish. So, and he was trying, and I do feel that Unai Emery's language, grasp of the English language, vastly improved. But it was difficult for, I think, in my opinion, fans to connect with Unai Emery because of his difficulty in communicating with fans through us and on TV and through the media and whatnot. Mikel Arteta, on the other hand, is very good and is very adept at holding court. Is very adept at getting his message across. But to call him a media darling, I'm not sure. I think this stems back to the previous question about, you're essentially asking, have we given Arteta an easy ride, given the run that you guys have been on? I think, as I I'm sorry to hark back to the previous answer, but I do think that the fact that if you guys think he has had an easy ride, that will be because the message from inside the club has always been that strong that he is not under any threat. And I think, that way, that's the reason why we've not been we've maybe fallen short of questioning why he remains in a job, essentially.
It's almost like you guys didn't smell any blood, so
For the want of a better expression, that is a very good way of putting it. That is probably a very good way of putting it.
The sharks weren't circling when.
Exactly.
You just knew it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't.
Okay.
We just knew he was. As I said, unless the season absolutely imploded, I just don't think the appetite was there to get rid of another manager, because where do you go from there?
That was my thing as well. I knew we weren't gonna sack him unless things got so bad, because I think it takes Arsenal it takes us so long to move sometimes. Like, it took us way longer than it should have to sack Wenger. It took us way longer than it should have to sack Emery. We weren't going to pull the trigger on Arteta, who is the club's choice. He's the club's guy. We were never going to pull the trigger on him just because we've entered a bad run of form, unless it got so bad that we, like you said, flirting with relegation, and I never saw that coming anyway. When you bring Thomas Partey back into the team, we would have found a fix eventually, which he has done. He stumbled on a fix. Yeah. But maybe this is the turnaround for him. Managers sometimes need that bit of luck. Arsene Wenger found Ashley Cole by luck. Rather than playing Silvinho. These things do happen. Talking about youngsters. Bless you. Talking about youngsters. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about. Olu, do you want to say the pronunciation? Balogun. Yeah, Balogun. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about obviously Balogun's contractual situation, and I think we're all really big fans of Balogun, and we want him to stay. Do you see any circumstance at which Balogun is going to stay at the club, and do you have any info or knowledge as to what's going on there?
I actually made a couple of calls on that today, actually, just to double check a couple of things. So I think he's got numerous offers from abroad for pre-contracts. I don't think he's agreed one yet. I don't think he's signed one yet. But I think he's minded to. I think he's frustrated. I think he's frustrated at the lack of playing time, for sure. Maybe perhaps understandably. I think he's
definitely.
He comes with a big reputation, right, from the academy, and given the goal scoring problems that you were having, maybe for him not to get more minutes during that period, I can see how that would frustrate him. I think the club is still trying to tie him down to a long-term contract, but I think it's all about pathway with him, pathway into the first team. And unfortunately, at the moment, I don't think he sees one. And maybe he looks at it. Maybe I'm better off going abroad, getting more first team minutes more regularly than I am at the moment. Because let's make no bones about it. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is the captain of the team, and he starts if he's fit. Dislodging him out of the team is a tough ask, particularly for a young lad. So I can understand why he would be attracted by those offers from abroad, and I can definitely see why he's giving them serious consideration.
I think part of the sorry, after you, Dan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's quite interesting though, because for me, if you're looking at the guys who are, I guess, blocking his pathway, you got Lacazette and Nketiah. Obviously, Aubameyang, if he's fit, he's gonna start, right? And I think that, as a youngster, you wouldn't probably expect to start over Aubameyang. But I feel like if you're talking about pathway, it seems quite an easy discussion to have, I think, with someone like Balogun, because both of those other strikers, Lacazette and Nketiah, I guess for all intents and purposes, it doesn't look like the club is planning on sort of extending their contracts, that kind of thing. They're both going into their last year. So I feel like it seems that if Arsenal did want to keep him, that seems like a very easy, solution to say, look, right, we're probably not going to renew these two guys. Let's think long term here. Like, your career is a lot longer than 6 months. We can get you a loan for 6 months, and then next season, you can start. So it seems to me like the club just aren't really sure what they're going to do there in that striker department for the future, and that's a bit of what's causing the commotion, I guess.
I think what I would say about the situation, I think it's another example of poor contract management by the club. This should have been sorted out last summer.
Yeah,
it should have been. Yeah. It should have been you sign his contract now, or we let you go to Brentford, for example. I think he was pretty close to Brentford, wasn't he?
Yeah, 5 million, I think it was.
Yeah, quite. So, it's either you sign a deal or we will sell you. But for some reason, another player has been allowed to enter the final 6 months of his contract, and I'm not sure it's going to end. Well, I'm not positive, shall we say, that it's going to end satisfactorily for Arsenal on this occasion.
Do you not think what also makes it more complicated is the fact that him and Nketiah are on with the same agency?
Yeah, maybe. I was just about to say that, and the fact that they're from the same stable, is there a conflict of interest there? I don't know, but that would be a simple answer for, and that would be a simple question for someone, for the manager to answer. It's who do you see as long term in your team? He's kind of flirted with Eddie Nketiah, hasn't he? He's had him in and out of the team, and you think he's finally made it. He's finally broken through. He starts in a couple of Premier League games. He comes on for given decent minutes, and then you don't see him again for the next 3 or 4 or 5 games. Yeah. So in my opinion,
so same as Nelson as well. It's just it's really strange. Yeah.
Reading between the lines, I would say it would suggest that Mikel Arteta isn't necessarily convinced by certainly by Nketiah, which begs the question: why not have a proper look at?
There was a transfer rumor. I'm not too sure how legit it was, but there was a transfer rumor. I think it was Eddie Nketiah to Wolves. Was it West Ham? It was Wolves first, and then West Ham, wasn't it?
Yeah, and West Ham. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know anything about that? And do you think Arsenal would entertain an offer for Eddie in this window? Do you think? Let me extend that question. Sorry. Do you think Arsenal would be open to selling anyone in this window at all?
Yeah, I think they definitely want to clear the deadwood. I think that. Listen, it's unfair to call. It would certainly be unfair to call Eddie Nketiah deadwood, because he's still a young lad and he's got bundles of potential, and he could still go on and have a fantastic career. I'm sure he will have a fantastic career, because he's a talented boy. But to maybe just to balance the books, I could see Arsenal entertaining offers for someone like Eddie Nketiah, just so they can maybe free up some wages that they can use to get the level of player that they want at the end of the season and in the summer. I think we're seeing already this month that they're looking to clear the decks a little bit and just to reduce the wage bill.
Yeah.
You know, listen, if they can get Ozil off the wage bill, even if it means paying part of his wages from now until the summer, I think that will be the best business they can do.
Yeah.
In January to get that level of money off your books is is almost like a massive like new cash injection. It's you've got all that money to those wages to play with. They've got they've Saliba's moved on, hasn't he? He's moved on to Nice.
I think Socrates might be going to Genoa.
So there's a number of players that they have targeted to get out, and I think that is, as I said, that is the priority this month.
Do you not think like it's 6 months too late at the same time? Because part of the issues we kind of had this season is just in terms of our squad, you had at least 28 players training first team, and it just looks ridiculous.
No, I agree. But what I would say about that is selling players is a lot easier said than done. You negotiating, getting the price that you feel is right. You see a lot of this on Twitter. People, fans saying, "Oh, just sell him, just give him away." But you got to remember, these guys are the guys that it's a business. Arsenal is a business at the end of the day, and you look at your balance sheet and you look at your assets, and if someone's not willing to pay you what you think that asset is worth, then you're not just going to essentially sell him and just give him away. So I think it's a lot easier said than done. Getting rid of players, but you can't just give them. And also, don't forget, you need to be able to sell them to a club that the player wants to go to. Because it's not like Mesut Ozil hasn't had his suitors over the past 2 or 3 seasons. He's definitely had clubs that wanted to take him, but one, it's not been a club that he wanted to go to. 2, it's not been a club that's been able to get anywhere near his wages. So getting rid of players it makes sense on paper, but actually getting it done is an altogether different scenario.
And I think just in terms of I guess selling players, just to touch on one of the guys that you dropped the bombshell on the last time you were on, Willian. There's been some rumours about sort of him not being him not being too happy, falling out with some of the other players, concerns about the non-negotiables not being applied evenly, him not necessarily settling into the team, and I think that's borne out by some of his I guess, to put it mildly, lackluster performances. Do you reckon that's someone that the club might look to move on? Obviously, probably not now, but in the summer.
I don't think they would look to move. If I'm honest, I don't think they would look to move Willian on in the summer. I know that Arteta was very much involved in that deal. Mikel Arteta was very much. He was heavily invested in trying to get Willian to the club, and I know you guys will probably roll your eyes up at that. And, oh my god! But,
I'm about to throw up.
I would say. What I would say, okay, his performances are there to be judged, right? But he is a proven, he has won things. He is a proven winner. And I mean, you look at the Arsenal squad. How many proven winners? I'm not defending the performances or whatever, but having character, and provided you can get the best out of them, and provided you can get him pulling in the same direction as the manager, having characters like that, more often than not, is beneficial. So if they can get some performances out of him, and then they can get him a bit more buoyant, then I still think there will be a future for Willian next season.
My dagger through my heart. All right, Sami, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I've just got a few quick fire questions to go through. Have you heard anything on links to Julian Brandt, the Dortmund number 10? I know you said that a loan is the most likely solution in this window. Obviously, we could maybe sign Brandt in the summer, or is it possible for us to maybe get Brandt in now, if that link is true?
I think that would again be more one to look for in the summer. They would listen, a player of that quality, 100%. You know, I'm sure that you would certainly be in the mix for someone like that. The player that they did want, and please do not ask me to say his name because I can hardly spell it. But the lad from
Bosley.
Yeah,
I'll do it for you. Don't worry, it's cool.
He was one that they would. He was one that they were 1,000,000% interested in, but I think he's agreed to go to the sister club, Leipzig, the sister club. So obviously that deal's off. So that's one that's been scratched off. So Brandt, you know, is a player that they've looked at, and you know, I'm sure they would be interested in. I've not heard anything significantly concrete about that, but you know, I've seen him play, But again, you know, with players of that quality, clubs don't want to let them go in Jan, and that's usually unless you're prepared to pay above the odds, which obviously Arsenal probably won't be prepared to do. Unless you're prepared to pay way above the odds in January, I can't see that all happening.
What about Usain Bolt? Do you think that boat sailed now?
Yeah, certainly this month I wouldn't see that deal. I wouldn't see that deal happening at the in January. And I also think there may be now clubs with bigger budgets who would be keen on Hassan Mouar. From what I understand, there would be other clubs and bigger rivals who would be prepared to pay more to him and to the club, to Leon, to get that deal over the line.
I guess another one, another German, Julian Draxler, who's always, I think he's been linked with us every single summer for probably the last 7 years.
He's the Adam Trebelsi.
Yeah, Trebelsi. What's his name? Jan Via, you know, Johan Gorkov, all of these guys as well. So is Draxler something that's realistic? So I think a few people in our WhatsApp group would be quite keen on him. I mean, they still think he's quite a good player, but we're sort of split down the middle on that one, I think.
Yeah, I think he'd probably, he would maybe be available. And what I would say about that deal is that all the scouting reports that, you know, have been done, because he has been watched. I would say I know for a fact that he's been watched at least sort of 50 times. Like the scouting reports would be. There'll be bundles of them locked away at the Arsenal training ground, so they certainly know all about him. Would he be available? I'm not sure. I think Pochettino would want to have a look at him first. But I think he's 27 now, 28. Is he a player that has maybe not past his best, but you know, would he still have the hunger? So I'm not too sure. I think, again, for January at least, I can see Arsenal just keeping their powder dry for now. If that deal, maybe if he was loanable, I could see it. But if it was a permanent, mate, I'm not sure that would happen.
Is he contract up in the summer? Is that?
Yeah, I think it is.
Sure. Right. Yeah. And final question from me actually is about backup goalkeeper. Since we signed the worst backup goalkeeper ever in history, and now we need a new one. So, any knowledge on that?
The one that they tried to go for in the summer was the lad at, name escapes me now, lad at Brentford,
David Raya.
Yeah. But you're back to the same problem of getting players out in January. I think Runnison, you know, God bless him, but the game against Man City. Oh my gosh, it was, it was something. It was not a night he will want to he will not to want to remember. So I understand why they want a number 2. Matt Macy's gone to Hibernian now, hasn't he? So so that ship sailed. So they do need a shake up in the goalkeeping department for sure. Obviously they've got their number 1. Mikel Arteta made that pretty clear who the number 1 was by the decision to let Martinez go to Villa. So he's going to stick by that decision. But yeah, the options the options behind him certainly leave at the moment leave a lot to be desired.
Definitely. That's me done, guys. Any questions before we let Sami go?
I guess my last question is probably just on, I guess, the dressing room mood. Because I think obviously whenever a team's in bad form, you're getting those stories about players are falling out, this, that, and the other. And we've had a couple of wins now, but do you reckon that like the mood around the place is still sort of fully supporting Arteta as well? Because obviously you said the higher ups, there was no inclination that he was going to get sacked or anything like that. How do you think that the players are feeling at the moment about the manager?
I think any dressing room you go across the country, there are always going to be, divisions. They might be minuscule, but in some clubs they might be gaping holes. But it's hard to. I think it's virtually impossible to have a dressing room that is completely galvanised and everyone is mates. You're always going to have your favourites. You're always going to have cliques. There's always going to be people who hang around, players who hang around with each other and are more matey with others than other members in the squad. But in terms of the mood of the camp, I think that is always invariably dictated to by results. So, of course, when you go on a run of not winning games and languishing towards the lower reach of the table and you're touching the relegation zone, then of course, those problems in those little pockets of problems you might have in a dressing room are always going to be magnified. But at the moment, given the run that you're on, it's obviously going to be far rosier. But yeah, during that period, there was a lot of noise about disgruntlement, amongst players, and perhaps questioning whether the manager's tactics were appropriate for a team or a club the size of Arsenal who have traditions of and heritage of attacking football. But while you're winning games and while you're picking up points as you are at the moment, I think those problems and those issues in the dressing room just get shoved to one side. I think, and I honestly think that's how it will work. But if you do go on another run of poor results, then I'm sure those stories will come back, and we'll all be questioning whether there are cliques in the camp.
Perfect. All right, Sami, I just want to say a big thank you for coming on, man. Your time is really much appreciated. I hope you've had a good time.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. So get hold of Sami Mokbel on Twitter. We'll put his @ name in the bio. Be sure to follow him and check out all his work as well with the Daily Mail. All right, guys. Yeah, we'll leave it there. Be sure to use the hashtag #TouchlineFracas. Follow us on all the socials at Touchygooners, and we'll be back next week. Take it easy, guys.